Fall and Sinn Féin. I'm not here looking for your vote, or am I here to tell you who to vote for? But what I am asking you is to make a promise that after this election that you will be back on the streets opposing the new government's austerity measures. There's no doubt about it. Whoever forms the next government, your lives will not change in the slightest, as all of the main parties play by the same rules in the same corrupt capitalist system. Despite the fact that capitalism created the mess we find ourselves, not one of the main parties has so much as hinted at the possibility that another socio-economic system is possible, or indeed desirable. Only a new socialist economic system can deliver genuine equality and ensure everyone gets their fair share of Ireland's wealth. We are now just 3 months from the 100th anniversary of the 1916 Rising. A time when ordinary men and women took a stand against the British state and their Irish lackeys. When ordinary men and women took a stand against oppression and exploitation. When ordinary men and women took a stand against the political establishment which protected the interests of the rich and cared nothing for the rest of the population. When ordinary men and women took a stand against slum landlords, police brutality and corrupt politicians. Do you know what the Irish Independent said about the 1916 Rising? It called the Rising an act of criminal madness. It called the rebels ingrats who have besmirched the honour of their native land. It called for the ringleaders to be singled out and dealt with, and for the execution of James Connolly. 100 years later, we are all part of another rebellion. A rebellion against the Troika and their Irish lackeys. A rebellion against bank bailouts, and a rebellion against the theft of our natural resources, including our water. A rebellion against a failed political system and a failed state. And once again, the state and the Irish Independent are trying to portray a justified rebellion as a criminal enterprise. They were wrong in 1916, and they are wrong today. So in this centenary year, there is only one fitting tribute we can pay to the men and women of 1916. Rebellion! 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 Together we will finish the unfinished revolution that began in 1916, and the Irish Independent can go to hell. Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Owen Cunningham from the Irish Housing Network.
I haven't got a speech prepared, so I'm just talking off the cuff here. Anyway. So one of the things we know about the recent government, Fine Gael and Labour, is that they do not give a shit about anybody. They do not understand what it's like for families out there facing eviction, suffering poverty. They don't care. They will keep cutting. If they get back into power again, they will cut and cut and cut again. They are doing nothing to protect people in this society. And again, they don't care. What I will say is that the election is a couple of weeks away. I won't tell anybody who to vote for, but what I will say is do not vote Fine Gael and Labour back in again. We have seen time and time again the party politics, the same people get into power since the foundation of the state, and look where we are today. 100 years later, we are no better than where we were before. They will continue to draw blood out of the people. They are taking money off people. They are making sure that people have no money to spend. The water charges is a big issue. Housing is a big issue. Housing is now being privatised to corporations and vulture funds. What the government have done in 2013, they made it easier for the banks to evict families out of properties by bringing in the Land Conveyancing Reform Bill 2013. We know that the government and certain elements of the media have been downplaying the amount of possession orders going through the courts right now. We also know that receivers have been given the go-ahead from the banks and the central bank to evict families and make it harder for people to retain their homes. So what I will say is to make sure that Fine Gael and Labour do not get back in. I'd also like to say special thanks to all the groups out there, all the homeless charities, the homeless prevention groups, and all the anti-eviction activists that have kept families in their homes. We know that the government are downplaying the homeless figures. It's been proved time and time again that there's not 1,500 families homeless. There's close to 3,000 or 4,000 families homeless. We have people cooped up in hotels. We have children that are suffering desperately. They're placed miles away from their schools. They're placed miles away from their families. And now what they're doing is they're bringing in these prefabricated homes. I do not support modular housing, and I never will. For the price of €200,000 for a prefabricated home, €200,000 is absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. So what I would say, use your vote wisely and beat the water charges. Thank you.
Hello, and thank you all for turning up today. I just want to talk about something I came across last June. It was Enda Kenny opening up a power plant down in Mayo. This was a biomass power plant. It was to be born wood chips. It would be eco-friendly, it would be emissions-free basically, because wood obviously is resourceable. Back in June, it was stated, and it was the Irish Independent, funny enough, that had this out. 180 million was to be invested, or look for investment for this plant that would create 42.5 kilowatts extra energy onto the grid. It would employ 30 people when fully finished. Now in Ireland at the moment, we use about a maximum of 5,000 kilowatts. We have already almost double that with full capacity when the wind farms and all are going. So this is a no-brainer. We did not need this station to begin with in the first place. But the interesting thing is 2 days ago, or Wednesday I should say, 3 days ago, there was something else on the news, so we'll get to that in a minute. But these wind farms will create, when they're up and running, an extra 3,000, which will go twice the capacity of the energy that we need. It costs 1 million per megawatt basically to build a gas generator factory. This was going to cost 4.25 million for every kilowatt that's going to be used. So it's over 4 times the price it's going to cost. Because it's energy efficient, it's been subsidised by me and you. Right? The normal cost per megawatt was 50 euros per hour, I believe, where this was going to cost us €125 per hour, so they're actually getting twice the price of it. It all sounds really, really good for the investors. And again, they were quoting that they were going to be American investors. Let me see, where are we? Oh, look, I'll just skip to the end, it makes no odds. All the other information in between doesn't really matter. The fact of the matter is on Wednesday it was announced that Veolia, the environmental company, are actually the ones that are opening it up at a cost of 180 million to the Mayo people. They're going to invest 180 million in the area, and of course, as we know, Google have recently also announced they're going to be opening up a factory. So the factory will actually be producing, in my opinion, the energy for Google down there, and you'll be paying the extra €75 in the subsidy fee per kilowatt per hour. So Enda Kenny, you can see where he's bribing his way in Mayo. And anyway, thanks very much. That's all I have to say. Thanks very much, Paul. Can you put your hands together? Our next speaker is Owen Craig from Visit. Those of you that are unaware what Visit is a local homeless charity which was set up by a number of community activists in Tala area and does massive work. So if you can put your hands together for Owen Craig, please.
Good afternoon. It's Commissioner Owen Craig. I'm a Republican and a community activist. As a member of the Project FHEIS 1916 Society, I've linked in with many community issues, from protests against cutbacks to mental health services to pickets against Dublin County Council for their lack of activity while families are forced to sleep in tents. From this activity I've met many wonderful people from many different groups, including Tallaght Says No, the Hub, the Land League and various other Republican groups. After a while it became apparent The only ones doing something tangible for the community wasn't those parasites in government, but the community themselves. This is why in October 2014, myself, Nicola Moore and Brother Vivian set out to help the most vulnerable of society. We set up FHEIS. FHEIS started out primarily as a soup run to try and make a difference to just one person. It quickly escalated into the demand from so many more living in poverty. Those really struggling. Those forced to decide between feeding their children and putting gas on the meter. It's because of those corrupt animals that this is going on. We at FHEIS try our best to support people in whatever way we can. Only through the generosity of the community are we able to do so. At our service, we deal with people from various backgrounds. The stigmatisation attached to people without a home could not be further from the truth. We have also seen those with mental health issues, not able to avail of the services they require, end up pushed from pillar to post because nobody will accept responsibility for them. Again, it's those corrupt animals in government. Sadly, we at FHEIS have had to deal with loss lately. Not once, not twice, but 3 times in the last couple of months. Rachel, Mark and Ronnie, wherever you guys are now, I hope you're comfortable. Finally, I'd just like to give some advice to those trying to get themselves elected. Remember where you came from. Remember who you're asking for support. Because if you do get elected and you're not true to your promises, we will remember your lies. And as you can see from today, we won't go away. Just on the last note, I just want to say thanks to Nicola Moore for all the work she does behind the scenes. My partner Sarah that was helping us from day one. And lastly, every member of the community who has supported FHEIS. Could have made them all good.
Thanks very much, Alan. Our next speaker is People for Profit Councillor Gino Kenny. Just put your hands together.
Thanks, Scott. Hello, brothers and sisters, comrades. I have to say it's a great feeling to be back on the street again, because this is where this movement began, this is where the movement was born, and this is where the movement is strong. Don't believe Alan Kelly's lies. Hear no evil, see no evil. When he says we're not talking about water charges. Water charges is the key issue of the election campaign. Over the next 5 weeks, the water charges will be the key issue of the election campaign. And the boycott is extremely strong, and we have to keep that boycott up as well. And on one hand we have the ballot box, and on the other hand civil disobedience, because civil disobedience is what puts the fear of God in this government. So our message to the political establishment over the next 5 weeks is to keep this issue alive. The boycott is still strong. We'll see people on the streets as of today and in 5 weeks' time. So keep the political agenda on the agenda, and we'll win this battle, no doubt about it. And there's one thing that my politics grew up as in People for Profit, and as most people here, and there's one message that we have to give to the establishment, is what the Parliament does, the street will undo. Because the street is more stronger than Parliament. The street is more stronger than any TD. The street is more important than any political agenda than Irish water. So keep it on the agenda and we'll win. Thanks very much.
Thanks very much, Gino. Our next speaker is Steve Sinclair, who's a candidate in the forthcoming election on behalf of Direct Democracy Ireland.
How you doing, folks? Bear with me, this is my first time doing public speaking. We have a fundamental problem in the country. All these situations we find ourselves in, where our resources are being sold off, our water is being privatised, and we get bank bailouts, is based on one fundamental thing. The system we have in place at the moment is called representative democracy. You have a chance every 5 years to make a vote for whoever you want in to represent you. And what you're doing is you're trusting that person to do what's right by you. But what we found time and time again is that our trust has been betrayed. So I would ask that the system be changed, and the only way it can be changed is by you. And I would say that the new system we need in is direct democracy, It's turning the system upside down, where the diktats are not coming down from the top, and we're being forced to comply with what they're saying. I would say we need to fundamentally change it and bring it back to the way it used to be when we had Article 48 in the Constitution. The people made the decisions, they were consulted, and then their decisions were brought to the top, and the representative had to vote the way they wanted. I would ask that you vote, if not for Direct Democracy Ireland, that you vote for any left-wing party which promises to sign up to the one-year initiative and bring direct democracy back to you. Right now, our heroes in 1916 are turning in their graves at what's happening to our country. They gave their lives to give you a freedom which is still being denied to you. Again, bear with me. I'd like to give you a little information if you don't know it in regard to the water. Your Minister Alan Kelly has a brother Declan. He's the CEO of a company in the States which was set up by the CIA simply to take international water resources, because water is the new oil. It's worth absolute fortunes. And we have the greatest resource in Ireland. We have rain all the time, as you know. So, one of the fundamental things behind all these decisions made by this corrupt government is the fact that Alan Kelly and his cohorts want to sell off your resource to foreign interests, and they want to keep you down. They want to keep you enslaved and dependent on them. I would ask that in this upcoming election, you vote for anybody who signs up to the one-year initiative. We want to bring Article 48 back into the Constitution, and we want to give the people the power to call referendums. If you had that power, we wouldn't be here today. The bank bailout wouldn't have happened. The privatisation of water would not be happening. And we would be able to enshrine our neutrality and our resources in the Constitution. So think hard when you're making your vote. Thanks, folks.
Thanks very much, Dave. Our next speaker is Anti-Austerity Alliance TD, Paul Murphy.
Thanks a lot, Scott, and thanks everybody for coming. We should be confident today that we have Irish water on the ropes. We know that 4 in 10 people have never paid any water charges. They've never paid anything. We know on top of that, that 13% of those who paid the first bill didn't pay the second bill. And we don't know how many more since then didn't pay the third bill. We know that Irish Water refuses to tell us how many people have paid up in full, how many people have paid the last bill, because it would reveal that the boycott remains extremely strong at 50%. And so, despite everything, despite all their propaganda, all the scaremongering, all the fake promises, everything, we, together hundreds of thousands of people across the country, have built confidence over their fear and have built an incredible mass movement of civil disobedience. We also know that last year, for this new tax the government brought in, the water charges, they lost money. When did you ever hear of a tax losing money? We know for a fact they spent more on the consultants, they spent more on the propaganda, they spent more on administrating the bills and the conservation grant, and they spent more on the grant than they did raise in total about the water charges. And what that says is that this isn't about the charge as it is now, it's about the charge that it would be in the future, and it's about the privatisation of our water. It also tells us that we do have them on the ropes, and we have to knock them out with 3 blows. One is to keep up the boycott, to build it stronger, because regardless of what government is in after the next election, if 50% of people still refuse to pay, they cannot break our boycott. There's no courtroom big enough in the land to take 750,000 people. There's no way that they can beat us if we remain strong. The second thing is demonstrations like this, the demonstration in town later on and a week before the election. Let's fill O'Connell Street with the biggest demonstration we've seen in decades to show that we haven't gone away and to build the political pressure on all of the parties. And the third thing is to use the election. To use the election to start a political revolution in this country. A political revolution based on people power to kick out the crony parties of austerity, Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael and Labour, and to end the rule of the 1% economically and politically in this society. That means a government that says in advance, no deals, no coalition with these parties. We do not put them back in power, because if we do, we know exactly what they'll do all over again. Kick them out. Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael and Labour. And a government that takes on the vested interest, the Dennis O'Briens, the bankers, the bondholders, the 1%, and reshapes our society and our economy to serve the needs of the people, as opposed to that of the profit of the 1%. In response to that, there will be those who say, you need to be practical. You need to deal with the electoral and parliamentary arithmetic as it is, and that means you need to be practical and be prepared to do coalition deals. If only Fianna Fáil would sign up to this or that, well then maybe we could talk. Well, James Connolly over 100 years ago gave the perfect answer for that call to be practical. He said, don't be practical in politics. To be practical in that sense means that you have schooled yourself to think along the lines and in the grooves that those who rob you would desire you to think. Revolution is never practical until the hour of revolution strikes. And then all of the efforts of the compromisers and the conservatives are the most futile of human imaginings. Let's start that political revolution. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Paul. We're just going to wrap it up there. Just a couple of announcements to make. This coming Friday the 29th in the Children's Court, Jason Lester is up obviously over the John Burton incident. Any support would be much appreciated. Finally then, Saturday the 30th, the Moore Street, there's a march at Liberty Hall from 1 o'clock calling for the preservation of the Moore Street Terrace as a national monument. So that's it pretty much, folks. Thanks very much for coming. As we march our way back down towards the Lewis and the buses, obviously let's let these people hear some plenty of chanting. Thanks very much.